right, I think we're live. We're
Yeah,
recording
live.
now. I'll pause the music here in a second. All right, for any of you that are hearing that music in the background, it's a good friend that I've been supporting for a long time over in Amsterdam called Dopez Tracks. Go check him out on YouTube. Great guy. I give him a lot of the content. He actually redid one of my riffs that I played on my guitar from about 22 years ago, 23 years ago. He redid it and it was fantastic. I mean, it sounded like so professional in the recording, but go support him. He does a lot of music. At least I give him suggestions and stuff that I hear at least once a month. And so go check out his stuff if you're into kind of the hard rock, heavy metal. He's got all kinds of different tracks, backing tracks and things like that. It's great stuff. Anyway, Brent, or should I say Indiana, today, they were all making a bets on what we were going to show up as. And, I went with the easy costume here, that I've had for years. I like this one because it's very, very easy for me to slip this on. And I also have an Indiana Jones costume, and I have a Flynn Rider one too for when my daughter was younger at Disneyland. She was carrying around a frying pan, and I was Flynn Rider, and of course she was Rapunzel, and from the new movie. I forget what they called that new movie. It wasn't Rapunzel, but yeah, it was
Hair or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember. It's been a while, but I have pictures of it. So happy Halloween, everyone. I'm going to start off this doing a little bit differently instead of us constantly saying, we're close to finalizing the testnet and releasing that. I'm just going to kind of go into the different areas that we're working on. And I know people have talked about, hey, there's a lot of code there that's, being flung around, but I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit because in general, some of the things, it may look like we're doing a lot of code. I mean, but we're not really doing that much in terms of new code. It's really integration work where, we'll find that like the Crypto 3 libraries, like one of them will be over in that repo, and we have to we want to take a piece from here and a piece from there, and we move it around. And so I'm going to actually go to GitHub here for our GitHub and kind of show you where you can track. And I think the README doesn't have this, but we'll add it in there. So I'm going to share this really quick. Let's see how this works on. Never done this with in this. Okay, there we go. That's cool. All right. So in here, you can see in our GitHub, this Genius Ventures Super Genius. This is the main kind of system, the nodes that operate and everything like that. And if you look on the develop branch, we're putting a lot of stuff in there. You can see yesterday he made a commit, but this is not like a lot of new code. What he's done is, okay, in order to run our nodes and the test part of it, he had dead beef in here as a string value, and he needed to make it this. And so this is not a lot of new code. It's just like, hey, look, we had originally done this, but now we realize that you need the full, fill out the full string like this in order for it to operate better and for the testing. And so you can see it's to convert the conversion to UINT 256. So this is not a lot of new code. It's just like, hey, if you want your node up and running for the testnet, this is kind of how we start off just for our internal test. And then this configuration will actually change, and this will be different. But for our current testing, before we release testnet, we want to make sure that this works in our internal testing. On top of that, the other thing you can do is you can actually look at, if you go to the GitHub here, and I'll actually post this in the chat if I can find it. Let's see here, chat. Here we go, chat. This is a link to that if anybody wants to follow it. It is very technical, so I don't want you to think that, you really have to. You can come in here once a week, or, I have the admins kind of watching us, and they can ask questions of me of where we are on this stuff. But if you look here where it says actions up at the top here, you can actually see, this looks bad. You'd think, oh no, this looks bad. Release build CI, it's all red. Well, that's not the whole picture. You have to kind of go into like develop here. And if you look, you can see that, 4 of them are green, right? And that means Linux is working, Android is working, Mac OS is working, iOS is working and compiling correctly. The only thing that's wrong, and we're having a little problem with this right now, is Windows is not working. And so we're looking at that, and Brent, you can kind of chime in here on that. The Windows one is some kind of weird thing with Microsoft Visual Studio or Visual Compiler not handling int 128-bit integers correctly, and we could switch it to CLang. But there is a little bit of way to kind of use Booster or something called Abseal to use the 128-bit things. So it won't be a lot of code changes for us, but it'll seem like it because we're like, oh, hey, let's add this library that supports this 128-bit because it wasn't there for some reason in Windows. And this was working at one time, and I'm not sure why all of a sudden Windows stopped working. Who knows? But anyway, we're kind of focused on a few things. You can kind of see Henrique is one of the programmers that's working on the ZK Snark stuff. You can see him here, and most of the stuff that you'll see, it's not really heavy code changes. It's like cleanup. You can see he marked it: cleanup, removed unused YAML. He's removing some dead code and stuff, because what ends up happening is we go in there and we're like, hey, look at the crypto 3 stuff, okay, which one are we using? We'll run a test, we'll figure it out. And then we're like, okay, we got to get rid of all the other garbage as we're going along. We have to clean up after ourselves and go, okay, we went and found these, but it weren't the right ones because, the crypto 3 library is removing stuff, and they're moving fast. They're removing documentation. They're kind of doing stuff on the cutting edge. And then we're like, okay, we got to stop following their rapid development and kind of lock this down and branch off of their rapid development, because they're moving stuff around on us, and it's kind of gets messy a little bit. And so when you do that, then you got to go back and clean up stuff. You can see he's removing stuff. And then, a lot of code that you see that people are saying, oh, there's a lot of code going on. Well, it's not really, because what ends up happening is, like, this may look like a lot of code, but in general, what's happening is we have it on our particular computers. Like, I'll have some stuff for the bridging, right? And I'll make sure of testing, and then I'll merge it in. And so it may look like a lot of code, but when Henrique is doing his stuff with the ZK Snarks, and he's making a bunch of changes, and not a bunch of changes, but a few changes, and I'm making a few changes, and they kind of overlap. There's something called merge that happens, or rebase. And so what ends up happening is it looks like there's a lot of code changes because the merge happens, and then it's like, okay, this is what you meant. This is what needs to go here. And if there's conflicts, it'll work out the conflicts. So it's not really a lot of code changes. There is some code going on, but I still go back to this kind of project, and I was kind of optimistic on the testnet part of things with these things. This bridging mechanism I'm working on, I'm almost finished with it. I almost finished it yesterday, and this involves basically taking the messages from all the different blockchains at once, and then minting them on our blockchain. And we have the mint function done, but there's a little bit of code cleanup in there as well, because we were doing it one way, something called UTXOs, and Brent's going to be helping out with converting that to the account-based system. But that's not too difficult. That's a day or two kind of worth of work, in my opinion, but that's for me if I did it. So give it a longer than that.
Yeah, multiplier factor if it's not Ken, perhaps.
Yeah, if it's not me, multiply it by a little bit. 10 maybe, I guess, 5 maybe. But if you but I'm able to jump in here on a lot of this stuff now because of the my time's been freed up a little bit in the fact that we hired a a smart contract engineer who's going to do that audit. He started yesterday. I finally bit the bullet and said, hey, we got to do this. We got to bring this guy in who's going to do all our audits. Great guy. He's done audits. He's written a book on audits. So I'm really happy with him. So, and these are kind of the things that we are working on. So I'm going to just go over these one by one. You can see the command line interface in review, the prover integration. That's super, super, super close, I'd say. Brent, what do you think?
So I got distracted right when you said that. Which one are you looking at?
The prover integration here.
Oh,
It says
yeah.
it's in review.
Exactly. So Enrique was, working with me regarding dependencies and shaking down those dependencies, because I kind of want to, you're asking me about the status of this, but I want to kind of bridge this into generally what you were talking about is the need to clean up code. There is that 128-bit material you were talking about. This is material that we don't actually need, and so it's just kind of a funny thing. Like, do we switch over to a different compiler to address it, or do we just remove it from the code altogether? You talk about code churn. It's like, well, we're talking about the possibility of just removing code that we don't need, so we get that out of the way. But that question is a little bit bearing upon that prover integration, because that has to do with dependencies, and that's what we're dealing with that one. And so it's kind of a small matter to make a decision there. Just pick something and run with it. So yeah, not far from that one.
Yeah, yeah. And the bridging mechanism, I mean, I think I'm a day or two, and then we'll integrate this. That's kind of, this integrates with the prover. So what ends up happening is the bridging takes a message from the different blockchains. And I know we're getting a little technical here, and we'll steer away from this just after we're done with this. Oh, by the way, you didn't say, kind of what my costume is, Brent. Can you guess?
Oh yeah. Well, it looks like it's the super genius.
Oh, yeah. Super, super, old school retired superhero looks like. Look at my, my hair versus my, I kind of have a barrel chest anyway, so I kind of fill out this kind of Superman superhero kind of upper body thing. So it's kind of cool. And then this is, of course, just a nice T-shirt, but it's a quick and easy costume that I've had for years. But anyway. So back to our regular scheduled programming. The bridging mechanism here, like I said, I'm doing that. You can see I'm assigned to that. This party computation is, I think this actually is mostly finished, but it bridges, or it doesn't bridge, but it's blocked by or waiting for the prover integration, because we do have what's called a ZK snark for this multi-party computation. And this is just simply a check. Once the prover works, then we feed in what everybody's done into the prover, saying, yeah, everybody's correct. Go ahead and issue the tokens for everybody. So this is kind of, I guess we should actually say, add something in here that it's waiting. We need to have another item in here that's like waiting or blocked by, number 6, just waiting, sitting there waiting to do that. I know Itzafu's been working on that, and I don't even know that this is really something that needs to be done. So we're going to have another one in here as TBD. And same with the monolith hashing. We don't really need this. It's a great thing that we'll work on after testnet's released, but we can use another hashing. So we should actually add some items in here, and I don't think I can do it.
So
Yeah.
while you're doing that, Ken, I want to go ahead and address something here. This actual task list, in relative to how the team is actually communicating. There's different models for how a team is internally, communicating the tasks that need to get done, and obviously this is one way to do it. We have internal discourse using a tool called Element. And there's considerable traffic there as we work together very close knit as to what needs to be handled. And a consequence of that is this medium that Ken is walking through, it isn't getting the same love. The frequency of it being updated is not a consequence of we're not paying attention. It's like, no, we're using a different tool internally just for very, very tight communication. And therefore there's I even question how helpful, and this is something that Ken, I probably should have discussed before having gone into this, how helpful a list like this would be, because even if we were to update the headings in here, the fine-grained details of what kind of little minor points we're addressing within each of them, I don't think anyone on the outside is going to be privy to seeing what that is, because there's a separate internal discussion for that. So, I mean, Ken, you did say that this is not something necessarily you want to. We're getting a bit in the technical side, and that's true. I think it makes sense. Just it's kind of fun to look at that briefly for an audience that is otherwise not technical, to know that we do have this profile of what needs to get worked on. But I think that.
Just real briefly, like you said, I mean, these are kind of our internal discussions, and we have stand-ups every day that basically shows, the wallet progress that Matt's working on. And I mean, this is every day is going on, you can see he finished up his adjustments to third-party SDK. And so that's kind of another thing that we're doing is, I want to kind of show that, but I'll stop, sharing this, because
I think it's a good thing to do, to showcase that, see, here's all the intensity that's going into this. But the thing is that if we keep on attempting to give like a fine-grained report, publicly as to where we stand, I don't know that information is going to mean anything to 99% of anyone who's paying attention. But I think it is a kind of a cool pit stop to say, hey, this is what it looks like when we're working internally. So.
Yeah, now I got to figure out how to stop sharing this thing, screen share. I guess I could start this and then say stop sharing. There we go. So I just wanted to kind of get into the weeds on that, because I know people keep asking us, when's Testnet? When's Testnet? And it's a lot of the guys that are asking are concerned about when they can sell their tokens and speculate on their tokens. And as I said, I'm not really interested in helping speculators make a quick buck on the GNUS tokens, because they were never meant for you to treat like a normal investment. You either hodl it for a long time, knowing that in the very, 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 very near future, when all this stuff is done and we launch Testnet, that the tokens, the economics of the token are going to start to burn, right? And I'm not saying that I'm completely non-empathetic with people's situation when they buy the token, but you got to be patient. I want to do this right. I want to release this. We are not. I could have released something like BitTensor and Tau, but we are not them. We are a completely different situation where it's like releasing a whole game or something like that, and everybody else can. I mean, I could have done a BitTensor or even the run on Flux stuff. I could have taken their code and put up a nice single use kind of thing and be a competitor with everybody else. But we are not that. We're disrupting, and this product is like doing a video game, or it's actually bigger than that. It's like releasing Microsoft Windows from, going from Windows 7 to XP or whichever way it went, Windows 7 to Windows 10. It's not an easy thing, but we are 99.999% of the way there from my perspective. So, and also I appreciate Ken saying, no one rushed Satoshi, but even more than that, no one rushes Ethereum, right? When they went from, everybody kept saying, when is Ethereum going to get to proof of stake, right? And they never gave a date. They kind of gave some, maybe time frames, and they always kind of slipped a little bit, but they always produced the project, and that's just software. But these are, in my mind, I probably should have been a little less optimistic on the timelines on this, but I'm still optimistic that we'll get this done fairly short order as soon as, we get over this one roadblock. So to kind of give me your feeling, Brent, because I've been talking a lot.
I think you kind of characterized it well. Just to go back to, this is software, and when we get to our components and our integration to a level where we think, okay, we're just about there, and then as we go into the details of the integration, then we find, the little hidden gotchas, particularly in, some of the third party code. It's like, okay, and we've kind of gone over that, so I'm not going to go over that again. But wholly agree that the commitment here is we're getting this done as quickly as possible. It's going to be absolutely huge, and everyone knows why. So we just have to be patient, remaining aware of what this is all about. To put more flesh in it, this is not a meme coin. If this is what some are concerned with, our concern is the product. And as I've said in other AMAs, when I was brought on board, Ken said to me, our goal is not to be day by day attempting to pump the coin. Day by day, it's work on the product. We're getting this product out the door, and wherever the value of GNUS is in the interim, just stay focused, and that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and I know some of the other Coles, key opinion leaders online have asked about when testnet, and that's why I keep saying very, very, very soon. These are kind of getting there, and I don't know. So somebody did say Genius Wallet integration is done, so that's good. Somebody updated that. I hope that wasn't me on accident. You can see this is in review. This is near complete. So once this is done, we're just waiting on really this prover integration, or the final prover integration, which is mostly in review. I would call this, it's so close that it's hard for me to say it's in review. Really, it's probably still in progress.
But let me go ahead and point something out. When we switch that from in review to this is complete, and then everyone can say, okay, then we're there. Well, this is software. This is where we get to find out, was there something else that was unforeseen, and then that turns into, we just handle whatever that is. Back to what I was saying before, is focus. The goal is to get this done. We have to just simply I'm reminded of that movie. I think it's called The Martian, where I don't know if anyone has seen that movie, but there was this theme of just one problem at a time. Just stay focused, keep on solving the next problem, and you will eventually, get to that end game. So we're in that spirit right now, and we're moving in that as quickly as possible. So,
yeah, and I don't foresee, with my experience, that there's many more to come. I mean, my gut's telling me after we get the prover done that there might be one more, but the good news is all of us have done all the rest of the problems, and we're kind of converging, and we can all jump in on that last problem, or those last two problems. It was like there's 6, everybody's working on one each. Okay, we're done. Now we got 3. Okay, so 2 of us can jump in on that. Okay, now we got 1, or 1.5 or 2. Okay, now 6 of us can jump in on those. And then finally, there's one last one we can all integrate. We can all jump in on that last one. So it's kind of like this big pyramid coming down, or this big funnel coming down. And I really feel the funnel is, a couple problems, 2 or 3 maybe issues that, we can all jump in and have a hand in unblocking. It's just like when Elon, I heard recently that Mark Andreessen was talking about Elon Musk, which was interesting because he said, I was having a meeting with him up in San Francisco, and he got on the phone, and he got on his iPhone, and he said, hey, Mark, just give me 15 minutes. I got to jump on the phone. And he was talking with the engineers that are building the rocket, and he was unblocking them, right? The CEO is unblocking the rocket engineers and then talking to Mark Andreessen, 15 minutes later. And so that was kind of interesting. I think that's what we're kind of doing. At least I am, for sure, jumping in on the code and helping the engineers. But it's all good. We're getting really close, and I know we keep saying that, but just kind of watch that. And it's not something I can say, hey, it's going to be done on November 8th. It's like we're real close. All of a sudden, it's just going to be done, and it's super, super, super close. It's like you can see we've gotten it. in review, done, TBD. We've kind of pushed these back. So I'm updating the schedule, and hopefully that helps everybody, even the long-term holders, understand what we're doing and that we're not just sitting by. And that's where all the code changes are coming in. All right. So shall we move to the
questions?
Questions.
Yeah, and they've been jostling around. I've been noticing. Maybe that some of that is our production crew helping out. I think also new questions have been arriving. And this is interesting. Normally this thing sorts itself, but I see its order. It looks a little funny, but I'll just proceed with what I see here. Okay, the questions here that are, still oriented towards, when is Testnet going to be released, that sort of thing. I think both Ken and I, are endeavored to give a blanket answer so that we don't have to keep on revisiting it for each of those. So, I mean, this question asks, what will be the various stages of Testnet that will lead to Mainnet, and how long will it take? We've already addressed the how long will it take. If there's any comments you want to make about Testnet, in terms of maybe how that is publicly, the public impact of those stages. They didn't say that here in the question, but obviously they would probably intend it that way.
Yeah. So the testnet is really, like I said, a fully operating OS, operating system, I guess, kind of thing. The thing is there's the stages are the first stage is kind of what I would consider alpha, where we onboard like 50 ones, test the mechanisms, make sure that it can scale. And then the second set of that within a couple weeks, we're all done with our coding side. Now it's just, okay, are there bugs for the scaling part of this? Does it scale? And we purposely built in the scale from the start. So I'm pretty sure it will scale, but you never know. There's something that could come up, some bug. We're like, oh, okay, well, let's fix that. But it's not going to be a huge rewrite of any code part of it. It's going to be like an edge case. We're going to be fixing edge cases that we didn't think of, but usually in my code, there's not a lot of edge cases because we do testing along the way. And that's the part is our QA cycles, or my personal QA cycles, have been very, 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 very short. I'm talking like days. Like whenever I released a product, it's not like the typical where we go into beta on a typical product like a game, and it's 3 to 6 months worth of quality assurance and technical debt, because I don't build up a lot of technical debt along the way. And so, our QA, and people are going to be shocked by this because, like I said, I've released almost all my games that way. It's like, look, I don't need a lot of testers, but what we're doing is we're making sure that the security is there for the bridging side of things. So in general, that's kind of the phases, is more scale a little bit more. Okay, this thing is good to go. Leave it in testnet for a little while, make sure the scale's happening, but also that the payouts aren't being don't have any security risks in them, right? And that's why I hired the guy yesterday. His name is now in the escapes me for a second. Is it John? Right?
I just saw the introduction and I said, welcome, and then I went right back to my code, so I'm in the same spot.
Yeah, he wrote a book. It goes by like Defender 3 or Armor U5, and this is so funny because I just talked to him, and I think it's John, but anyway. He's now on our GitHub account, and he's written a book on security on smart contracts and things like that. So that's kind of what will happen during the test phase, is like doing a security audit. So really, it's going to be launch. We don't really need security audits because it's on the testnet. That's why we are on the testnet. Do the 200. Make sure the security is there. Then the 200,000, launch on the 200,000. I would feel real comfortable after we launch on 200,000 nodes and we kind of see and do an analysis on the scale and how how it scales and the kind of risk factors, risk factor analysis of scaling that quickly. And after that, if it's good to go and the audits are good, which I suspect there'll be very little to change, then I would be comfortable just flipping the switch, saying, okay, we're on mainnet. But that I would guess that we're looking at 2 to 3 months, 60 to 90 days at least. But there's no guarantees. That's just kind of an optimistic view of where I've been in before in regular QA cycles. But I don't think this is even really a QA cycle. This is more of a single kind of security audit cycle and a scaling cycle more than it is a regular old QA cycle.
So I think that, much more breakdown than that, as you listed this as the alpha and beta, I don't think that would, it would be too fine grained at that point. Some of the most fine grained details, like if we do find the problem, well, then tell us what would that be? Well, we'd have to find the problem to be able to tell you that. So, I think that kind of canvases that. And with that, I'll move on to our next question here. Well, or comment, happy Halloween. I bet GNUS.ai are scaring all the competition. We have been actually, I won't go into details, but there have been some conversations I've had where I've seen some wide eyes of like, holy smokes. And I'm like, it's funny. I almost feel myself like I don't want to be noticed right now. Don't make me into the bad guy. I'm sorry, this is disruptive, but this is just what we're doing. So
yeah, I went to a networking event. I think it was day before yesterday, up in San Francisco, and that was kind of pretty cool because every time I would talk to somebody, it's the same. Even people that don't are sort of in the blockchain but don't understand the technology. When I explain it to them, they're just like, "Whoa, that's a great product," and they're like, they're like, I can't figure out who your competitors are. And I said, well, we don't compete, we disrupt. That's why you can't figure out who our competitors are. Everybody else is competing, while we're disrupting them, and so this kind of thing, I know people that are in Genius kind of get that, but you have to realize that disrupting, different industries is kind of a long-term play. And if you think that, Genius is going anywhere, you got another thing coming.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I'll go ahead and go straight into our next item here. Please create a Genius AI agent on a virtuals platform on Base. Okay.
Well, I do have something in mind with launching. So some of the investors that are, I wouldn't really call them investors, but joint ventures that want to do compute, both AI and regular old compute, like an EC2, CPU kind of compute instances, like running Docker containers. And that is what everybody else is doing, right? They're running Docker containers, and it's all the same. It's really easy to do. I mean, we could fork a lot of different code bases that are out there and we might do that just because that gives a missing piece to these family offices or these joint ventures that beyond family offices, kind of like the Malaysian government and the Philippines thing that we're working on, for them to come off of AWS and migrate to AWS. And that's a really big project, but it gets them off of the AWS. We reduce their cost on that front, as well as the artificial intelligence, because the AI stuff is kind of the future in the next, 5 to 10 years growth really high, but they still have all this legacy stuff that needs to be replaced as well. They don't need to replace it, but if we can reduce their cost on that legacy stuff and the forward thinking AI stuff at the same time, I do have a way to do that. And I passed that by Brent to kind of look at. But after testnet, we'll just kind of take those repos and spin up our own version of that, and then label it with our tokens and stuff, because it really is our patent. And so, there are open source, and the only thing about open source is, they have the license on there, and the license good, but if you violate a patent, the licenses really don't matter. But so we can take that and spin up our own kind of version, branded version of that, and not be worried about them going, "Oh, you're violating our patent." I'm like, "No, you're violating our patent." So now, we're going to go ahead and do this, and then we're going to inform your customers, or you, if you're not a DAO, that, hey, you should not be using that system because it's actually violating our patent. Come on over to us. Or better, hey, joint venture people that we're working with on you, you can use our white labeled or a rebranded system if you need that side of things. So it's kind of a multiple offering for that. And so that is in the works, but after testnet and
Yeah.
a couple months into testnet, that will probably be an option for us.
Now, Ken's reference to patent protection, et cetera. Me personally, I do not think that's the venue where there would be hostility. I could be wrong, but I think that it's great to have the patent, of course, and patents for that protection. But I think that a white labeling exercise would be something that would probably be received well by anyone. Please use us. It's not like they want to fight us. It's like, no, they're going to fight to bring us on. Compared to
The partnership. Yeah. I'm
partnership.
hoping that's the case too myself, right?
If I were on their side of the fence, that's what I would do.
Yeah, same here.
And I also, you didn't mention it, Ken, but this kind of ties in a little bit to the premise we've had a discussion about, VNets, potentially carving off the, virtual networks where certain AI work and jobs can be done that are cordoned off from like a compliance point of view. And again, that's not now, but this all feels like the kind of a similar topic to me. And it's really wonderful to have these conversations because it's just one facet of many arenas that will expand into as the network, the Genius network grows, et cetera. And be really thrilled to be working on those pieces. But moving on to our next one here. Let's see. Keep up the design quality of your posts on X. Those latest include short vids are awesome. Thank you for that feedback. Fantastic to know that those are coming, being received well. So fantastic. Let's see, who are your potential customers for AI and ML processing? Can LLM like ChatGPT and Cloud Sonnet benefit from GNUS.ai?
Yeah, so this is kind of funny. I love to talk about this. Is we just recently, there was two recent technology production events, good releases on stuff that actually enabled these agents, these decentralized agents, especially using decentralized nodes like Genius is, to basically do large language models. And I forget what they called it, a swarm, I guess. That's been around for a while, but there's something particularly interesting with Microsoft releasing their 1-bit LLM, 1-bit AI, and I think I'm going to get technical here for a second, but it's called 1-bit stochastic gradient descent that allows, and they released the code on that. And I think it was even in C++, that allows you to, that won't affect our bottom end layer, but what that does is that allows you to put models on top of our layer and distribute those to our nodes. And so all our underlying infrastructure doesn't change because the way we built this, but it comes in from the top as a model into the model distribution side of things and goes out to all the nodes. And so that was just released by Microsoft. And like I said, I told everybody from the beginning, it's like, look, we're not solving that problem. We're doing the underlying architecture that allows that to actually come in and be distributed. And here we go. Microsoft solved it a lot quicker than I thought they were going to. I've been watching that for a while, but recently there's been 2x posts that I'm like, dang, man, that's great that they solved that quickly. As soon as we release, we'll just start, showing you guys how to integrate those models into the Genius AI network. And it should be a fairly quick integration for that.
The thing is that, for every one of these kinds of breakthroughs that we are in a position to discuss, you can think of, a half dozen, a dozen others that, are not even on our radar. It really blows my mind when contemplating how the Genius Network being out there, and all of a sudden, all of the brilliance of others who've got these kinds of ideas that require our network, their invention is now enabled because of what we're offering. So this is kind of almost a reference back to conversations we've had about, questions about partnerships, what partners are we making? And without revisiting that one, and I'm sure we will again in the future, but this is a different aspect of the comical zombie horde we refer to. This is there's fast zombies, there's slow zombies, whatever. And this would be a variant of the zombie that all these people come in with their inventions that we're like, who are you? And you're doing what? I could just imagine us having a forum that we maybe add to our website where the newest things that people have done on the Genius Network, kind of like the didn't see that coming, but there it is, and it just explodes. Um, Exciting
Yeah,
times.
I was just going to say that this also, like I said, back to the kind of rebranding of something that's already out there. They can go on the. It depends on what the technology is, right, and what they're after, because the AI market is really mainly what we're doing, but there is some underlying decentralization happening with things like load balancing and running regular CPU compute like websites or peer-to-peer, not peer-to-peer, but non-peer-to-peer kind of networking, the old school client server type of stuff that happens on like Docker containers or similar to spinning up a compute thing on AWS that has nothing to do with AI, but that does different things like database services, right? Things like that. And so we were mainly focusing on the AI side, but we realized the other competitors, while they are trying to focus on AI, what they're doing is they're building and they're competing with the AWSs, or they're disrupting AWS directly, but now they're competing with AWS right now, where we're disrupting everything else. And so we'll disrupt AWS, we'll disrupt them as well because of the way our AI system works. And we can just let them all compete on that. And then we can just take the piece of that and kind of support through the Genius token those things and the AI at the same time. But I really want the forward thinking and the future to focus on the AI part of it, because that's where all the money is. The rest of that is we're competing as a race to the bottom, for the cost of EC2 or compute instances that are not AI specific or GPU. They're all racing to the bottom. And we're kind of like going, well, no, this thing's growing like this, um, with AI, just like OpenAI is growing like this, right? And so we're not trying to compete to the bottom, because then it becomes commoditized, and we can just leverage that and say, okay, well, we can reduce your cost down by 80% on those old legacy things, but we can also reduce your cost on the non-legacy stuff, the AI and all that. And so I think that kind of beats that dead horse enough.
Yeah. Let's see. Moving right on into the next one. Do you plan to use a market maker once the token has more volume? Also, how do you plan to get on Coinbase?
So we have a market maker currently on Bitmart. Bitmart, is that right? Yeah, is it Bitmart? There's like Smart Bitmart, Bit this. I think it's Bitmart. Um, yeah, we have been in talks with several market makers, but in general, we haven't thought too much about Coinbase. I think after testnet launches and the token starts to raise, and then we do like one or two joint ventures, then we can get on. We'll focus on. Probably need to hire a small team. I mean, I do have a pretty good partner that can help raise the money, but we'll have to build a small team to handle getting on Coinbase and things like that. And it's really about $1 million, I believe. to get on Coinbase, and I just don't want to spend that kind of money right this minute. But we have to get on Coinbase though, because the big joint ventures, aren't going to spin up a wallet per se. And if we're on Coinbase, then you can just buy it on there directly. And you can see bit tensors on there and all that, but I think it requires about $1 million to do that. And so it's on my radar, but kind of distance out in the distance right now.
Okay. Let's see. And I'm going to make one more little note here. I like to take notes sometimes during our discussions. Let's see. Next one. You've mentioned manual bridging previously. How exactly does that work?
So what it does is it acts just like the automated bridging will happen, but it's going to be on testnet. And so you'll have test tokens basically on Genius, and then there will just be a request. We'll have to, you've got to kind of request them out to regular Genius tokens, and then we kind of look at it and make sure the operating system and you got them fairly, and you did the GNUS.ai and the payments were there, and incoming and regular old fiat currency is coming in. They'll be converted into the testnet tokens. The whole processing will happen. We'll kind of review it and then basically take those testnet tokens and push those out to the regular mainnet smart contracts. And so we have to kind of review everything to make sure the security's there and somebody hasn't minted new tokens or minted, fake tokens and things like that. And so that's how that works.
Fantastic. I see here we have, by the way, I think we've been doing a better job of kind of keeping the questions concise, because right now, here we are 45 minutes in, just over, and there's actually one question left here. You both look very fit. What do you bench? Okay, that's funny. When I'm not wearing my inflatable muscles for today's Halloween outfit, I am myself a very regular gym person. I do Dave Asprey style HIIT training, and everything is based more on time than it is on weight. So actually a question like that, you know what? I'd have to actually go see what happened if I were to try to do a max bench. It's probably more than 10 pounds for sure.
I haven't done a lot of benching lately. One of the issues, I'm 6'3", and so my arm length is, I got pretty good muscles, but the leverage of my arm on a bench press is not that great because I can do really well on decline and incline bench presses, but like flat bench press, I'm not very good at. But I mean, 225 is not an issue. I can do multiple reps on that, but I don't focus on that because I get on the machines that are sitting upright for the bench press, right? And I think it's like I work out with like 225 on the machines or something like that and do about 10 reps. But I also do HIIT training, so I do kind of a cardio long stride elliptical for about 20 minutes, and I get my heart rate up 5 times and back down. And then when I lift weights, it's more of HIIT training again, where I'll do reps, until I'm like sweating like crazy, wait for about 30 seconds to a minute and do the next set of reps. So I'm not into bulking up necessarily. I bulk up really easy though. I don't know if I just eat too much, but when I start lifting weights, I bulk up within a couple weeks. I have pictures on Facebook. You can go see on Facebook. That was a few years ago, but in general, I still at my age bulk up pretty easily, and I haven't lost a lot of muscle mass over the last couple months because of the vertigo and the kind of health issue that I had over the last couple of months. I haven't had a chance to work out too much, but I'm starting to try to get back into it. I was starting to try to do it last week, and I think I'm going to start this week getting back in there. Like I did a long walk last night, but the weightlifting, I love weightlifting. I've been doing it for, oh my God, 30 something years or something like that, a long time. But in general, I don't even know what I'd bench. I never use that as a gauge. Just, but I can curl the hell out of shit for sure, and leg press is my families kind of build. My brother and I, I put on like 8 or 10 45s on each side, and I work out with that. And it's not that hard to do. I don't do a lot of squats. I don't like squats because of the way it can kind of affect your back and your spine and things like that, and your shoulders. And so I usually, even with the pads, when I start doing squats, I get these red marks that I hate, and like on my shoulders, because I got this kind of, muscle here. So I don't know what my bench press is, but it, in general, I work out with like 225. So I've never done a max bench press check.
Well, the question has me curious now. I figure, oh, gee, maybe I'll have to go to the gym today and just give it a whirl and see what happens,
Oh man. It's like, okay, I don't think so, because here's the thing. Like, people like want to join Mensa and figure out what their IQ is. And I've never, ever wanted to do that. One, because I think, I don't want to be disappointed, right? Let me have my delusion that my IQ is way up there and I'm a super genius, right? And I don't want to go take a test and go, oh my God, I'm barely over normal.
Oh my God, I'm just right where Brent is. It's the horror.
God, I don't want to be that, though. Well, have you taken an IQ test, Brent?
I have.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was a very, very, very long time ago, and I don't know what to make of it. It rang up as 136, but
yeah, my daughter was 138, so that is funny. She didn't do it on purpose. She was having some teenage angst stuff and talking with a psychiatrist and kind of working out that, and they did a bunch of battery of tests, and one of them happened to be to figure out how well she was using her brain and stuff like that. Now, I will say my dad did test at 150, and the better part of that was there's another test, was how well you're able to utilize the IQ, and it's in the Army. I don't know, it's like an aptitude test or something like that. And he told me that he actually it goes between 0 and 150. And the 150 is the max of how much you can use your IQ, I guess. I've never heard of this before, but my dad was telling me this. And he was a smart guy, didn't know how to really utilize the EQ, your emotional intelligence with people and things like that, but very, very smart. He got 150, and he was like 17 when he was in the Army. And they're like, no way, that's impossible. We can't do that. We got to test you again. And they tested him again, and he got 150 again. So to me, it's like, even if you have an IQ that's only, 120 or 110 or whatever, if you use 100%, yeah. If you use 100% of it, right? I know the average or whatever is breaking is 100, right? Something like that. But if you utilize 100% of it, or you're able to, leverage 100% of it, that's more kind of a good measure to me then, because there's a lot of smart people that have like 180, 220, but they can only use it in one little tiny, area or something. And to me, it's more beneficial in my life to use that IQ to, in these very, very broad areas. And as you know, Brent, I'm very, very broad and able to pick up in, multiple different disciplines. And so that's more important to me than what the IQ number is.
Now, I want to point out for the listeners, for those who might not be, watching our display, we're having this conversation because we did run out of questions. There's nothing more on the roster. So in case anyone's wondering, I do though want to follow on with what you're saying, Ken, and about it's more than just what is your IQ. I wholly agree. In fact, my add to that is kind of an emotional part, is getting yourself at peace with yourself, because if you are not at peace with yourself, then you become your own worst enemy. You are a person who is divided. And when you're divided, then it's hard to get your thoughts pulled together, and so that you're pulling upon the entirety of the resources of what your mind has to offer. And reflecting on you, Ken, we've had conversations that are not too distant from what I'm sharing right now. That and sometimes I will joke, and it's not really a joke when I say that you're kind of like Steve Jobs. I think that you personally have pulled away so many cobwebs and dissonances inside of you, so that you could just have all of that focused. And that, I think, is where the breakthroughs come, is in that combination of flow and that combination of focus, and then reaching that potential, whatever that that IQ value is. And so that's my take on that. So.
Well, one thing my wife said yesterday or day before yesterday, I was talking to her about something. Oh, I know what it was. Like in general, when you're building this project and things like that, is that she said, Ken, you're like in like that Steve Jobs. You're a visionary, and not everybody's a visionary like that, but you can execute on that vision as well. So you have the duality that is very rare in society, to be able to envision or have a vision of what the future looks like, but also be able to execute on that. And that's what genius is. And so I was like, I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. But I'm kind of modest about that stuff. It's like, I love doing it. So being a visionary and executing is just kind of a passion for me. And it's like, yeah, you're right. But everybody should be able to do this. It seems like the universe opens that up to anybody that wants to do that. And I really want to do that in my life, in my career. And I love doing that and always have. So I'm very open to it. And I believe anybody can get in that, stream of consciousness, as we've talked about before, to be a visionary, but they just have to be open to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Working out what I was calling those cobwebs, getting out of the way, the call it the dissonant voices in your head. You've got this opposing ideas of what do you want in your life. And, when those two voices or three voices or 10 voices are not in consensus, then you're not allowing yourself to be everything you could be. Okay, well, hopefully we don't have to go send out bills for all the life coaching and self-help we've just kind of appended to the back of our AMA here. But I mean, that is actually a topic, though, that is a substantive one for Ken and I, based on certain conversations we've had in the past. We do believe it's important to bring the whole self into getting something done. So we are just about 1 hour. We don't have any further questions or inputs from our channels. So I think at this point, I'm ready to go ahead and thank everyone again for joining us on our this weekly AMA. Happy Halloween. Hopefully, you'll have a wonderful, scare day. And although we're already in some very scary season right now.
Our next AMA, we'll kind of know, the election results too. I mean, that's going to be exciting. And
okay, this is where I put in my screen face. I'm like, will we? But really?
Yeah. I mean, somebody said that, it really doesn't make a difference, and it doesn't. And for us, particularly moving forward with the Genius, it does matter to me personally a little bit, but just like, when I disagreed with other people that got elected, I still moved forward. I got on with my life. And my wife keeps telling me that it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. You just got to keep moving forward no matter what happens in politics.
Sort yourself out first, and so much of the other tension in the world around you will magically, fall into a more coherent pattern, I guess, even if there is still a bunch of, I don't know,
webs in the way. I mean, it goes back to that. It's like, look, my wife a few years ago said, hey, don't worry about that. It's not going to, it kind of affects you mentally a little bit, but it's just a cobweb you need to remove, like you said.
Folks, again, thanks so much for joining us. Ken, thank you so much for taking on, the brunt of these questions. If any final words before we go ahead and wrap up?
No, I think it's all great. I appreciate you, Brent, coming on and helping with the technical side of things and kind of showing up. And I'm going to give you more chance to answer some of the technical stuff in the future, for sure. And thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks all. And we will catch you next time.